I mean, it doesn't really matter, Tasty, what broke it, whether it was the GCD change or a combination of what. It doesn't really matter. The fact of the matter is, what they did with the change broke everything. It doesn't matter if it's like, oh, that doesn't have to do with the GCD. It's because they implemented it, and now the server is talking to the client, and now it doesn't really matter, right? That's just semantics at that point. The fact of the matter is that they made the change knowing these things would be broken after, and then they did it anyways, right? Like it's to me, that's just kind of nitpicking to try to undermine someone who's unhappy with the changes, being like, the changes broke the game. Well, actually, it wasn't the change that broke the game. It's because of the underlying systems that work with the change that it's broken. Like, why even bother? Why even bother like making that distinction? It's that things broke after the patch. The only other big change I can think that had a negative impact like this is one, nerf buttons, which again only affected part of the population because only like 30-40% of the population used nerf buttons, so that had a pretty big impact. There was the guard changes that also impacted the server, but that only affected two-handed tanks and people who play tanks. So again, at best maybe a quarter of the server, 20% of the server. And then what else? The malice changes that they put into OpenRVR, that affected everyone, but affected everyone differently because some people were now rank 80, didn't really care about that. There really is nothing comparable that they've done to, and even all those changes had more explanation in them than this one. So yeah, I think this probably is the most wide-reaching, change that will affect everybody. Not to quit Return of Reckoning, but just to like step back. I didn't like where the game was going before this, and it scares me, right? Especially now all the drama that comes out of it too. Because even if you're, like I was saying before, even if it turns out in the long run the GCD change is good for the game, and it could very well be like there's some process or there's some idea in mind on how they want this to go about and where their end goal is that might actually somehow, like, let's live in a world where we're optimistic. Somehow this change is a good thing and it's going to mean good things for the future. Just the way it was done, the way it's going about it is rough, and the drama that's come out of it is also pretty bad. I mean, it's pretty much like there's a huge portion of the game population that doesn't like it. There's drama now on the forums that like, between Secrets and the devs and Dallin and Gravord, and like there's all this kind of bullshit spewing out, which is not very good for anyone. And at least for me specifically, when seeing this kind of drama come out, makes me even more just like reticent to play on a server that has those kind of things happening in the background. Power grabs and people like, trying to manhandle the game and force a direction, and, questions about who's in control and where changes are coming from. Like it's sloppy, and it's kind of, it's really makes you question the overall direction of the game and where it's going to go when there seems to be such discord, between the dev team, and if it's half of what Secrets is saying is true or the other side is saying is true, it makes it seem super dysfunctional. And it scares me that if this is just a preface of what is to come soon, it's I don't know. It's looking not great. It's actually funny, Tion, because there was something on live too that we had a similar issue where it came out, I think a few months after live, a year, that several of the devs had joined a guild. I think it was on Order side, and they were playing with them pretty frequently. And then there was questions of like, if the devs are playing in an Order guild, taking advantage of like Bright Wizard and all the strengths of Order side at that time, would they be willing to nerf Order? And then there were questions of, bias. And I think people were like, it's okay for the devs to play the game. It wasn't okay for the devs to tell the people in the guild that they were devs. And I think that's where they said they slipped up, is that it wasn't just the devs playing the game. They were playing and, with full knowledge that they were devs and open to influence. And it seemed like they were being influenced. So I definitely think I don't know how you stop that, right? Because if you want the devs to build your game to play it, because you want them to have a player's experience and not just a developer's experience, but how do you safeguard it so that there's no undue influence, and that like it's a really messy situation. Whether you like Gravord or you don't, I think most people would say like he is a long-term player that understands the game and plays at a certain high level of gameplay. but his vision for the game is very different than someone like Tion, who also has played the game for a long time, plays at a high skill level, and they have very different views of the game, right? Like there's two different people with two different views who play the game competitively. So to say like, oh, the dev, like people try to work the dev team and they don't want to listen to good players. Who are these good players that they're listening to? Like who should they listen to, right? Like what defines a good player and what defines which of the good players like they should even take? Gravward's final words. Time to go. Have a good stream, Zarbix. You have a great and nice community here. I'm glad it's free of toxic behavior. See you around. You know, see you, Gravward. All I'll say to that is like, what am I supposed to do? Like my community is basically your community, which is basically the Warhammer community. It's all the same people. It's like they're the same people who played the game. Most people aren't here because of me. Most people are here because of Warhammer. What am I gonna do? Like ban everyone who plays Warhammer who's toxic? Similar to Crowfall, I'll be left with nobody. Sad days, guys. Well, you know, what I find helpful, guys, is that when I think that things are in a bad spot, like when I'm in, maybe you guys are different, but I'll tell you what I do. When I'm going through life, like this week, you know, you're sick, work is really stressful, things are bad in your game, drama, and you're at a loss, what I like to do is I like to think about how could things get any worse? Like things are really bad right now, but how could they get worse? And so one way they could get worse is that I have to go now. I have to end the stream. So I am sorry, guys. Stream has to end here for the day. Short one, but it was a good one. This one will go down in the record books. This is going to be a good one. So I'm sorry, guys. But yeah, real life calls tomorrow. Most likely no stream tomorrow.